Next up, we're looking at Margaret Stewart, who is a VP of Product Design at Facebook.
So this morning, we've already heard about lots of examples of the role that technology is playing, and particularly AI, behind the scenes in keeping people safe on our platforms, and how we need to monitor the use of AI carefully to avoid unintentional harm through bias. But the way that people experience and interact our products matters a lot too. It's really critical to understand the human side of responsible innovation and how the interfaces that we design for products can impact people in society in good and sometimes not so good ways. When you look at this, what do you see? Words, pictures, buttons, maybe functionality, possibilities, things you can do, new things that you can unlock if you click or press or read. I see values. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a few steps back and I'll try to explain. I spent the last 25 years of my career designing global platforms that have given billions of people access to powerful communication tools. People that in the past, used to not be heard. And I used to believe that we were creating agnostic containers, vessels for other people's ideas, beliefs, hopes, and dreams. And it is true that these platforms have provided voice and access to billions of people that hadn't previously been heard through traditional channels. But the events of the last few years have been a reminder of something that's always been true. Design is not neutral. This belief that everyone should have a voice and access to tools to amplify their voice is not a neutral position. It is values-laden. And those values, they carry consequences at scale, and it has to be managed with the utmost care. Every time we design an interface for a product or a feature, we're making decisions on behalf of people, decisions that reflect our values to the world and can affect outcomes for people everywhere, whether or not we intend to. Now, unfortunately, getting things right is not as easy as saying, be responsible. There can be really tough trade-offs that we have to consider in the biggest and sometimes even the smallest decisions. Responsible design is about being intentional about those decisions, being cognizant of the values that inform the decisions, and doing our best to anticipate the impact that those decisions might have. And we also have to be careful to not define the potential impact of our products too narrowly, but to take a broad view of the social and political context in which they operate. Now, to show you what I mean, I want to walk you through a couple of examples to explore the different dimensions of responsibility through design. And I want to start with one of the hardest problems that we face, which has already been mentioned a bunch of times today, misinformation. Now, people on our platform share a lot of high-quality information, but sometimes, whether or not they intend to, people share misinformation. And this misinformation can be particularly harmful when people need to make consequential decisions about who to vote for in an election or making an important healthcare-related decision. So how might we use design to reduce the harm that can be caused by misinformation while still erring on the side of free expression? Early on, we tried a bunch of things. For instance, we worked with third-party fact-checking organizations to flag misleading content in people's feeds. But that just drew more attention to the content, which is exactly the opposite of what we wanted. Good intentions, not so good outcomes. So we took the time to talk to people in the community and also to external experts. And we conducted a lot of research, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And we found that across the political spectrum, and in every geography where we did research, people wanted to get better at determining for themselves the credibility of information that they came across. So we designed tools to help people determine for themselves the reliability of articles on Facebook.
Okay, let's pause there. So, Julie, you like Margaret Stewart as a speaker. So talk to me.
Yeah, I thought she did a really good job here. She was personable. She was friendly. I thought she connected well to the audience. She would ask them questions like, what do you see when you look at this? I thought that was really good to help get people involved and pull them in. She did a really good job pausing when it came for, looking for effect. Such as when she started in with, design is not neutral, and then pause, make that dramatic impact. That was fabulous. I really, really like that. I liked how she kind of weaved in there her experience, to kind of reiterate, why people should listen to her. She knows what she's doing. I spent the last 25 years of my career designing global platforms. Fabulous, I loved how she said that she talked about like what was on the agenda. Here's what I'm going to walk you through today. I'm going to walk you through some examples. That was great, setting the scene. Yeah, I think overall she was just really dynamic. She put good emphasis on key points. She talked in short sentences, kind of like we do in the advertising world. You want to write like people talk, and she was speaking like people generally talk, and used some really good descriptive language throughout.
Yes.
So,
what were some examples that you saw of the descriptive language?
Well, I think we talked about this prior, but let me see if I can find it. It was the agnostic container, the vessels. I thought that was so poignant. Just stuff like that, things that people don't necessarily use, words or phrases that people don't necessarily use in their everyday language. So, on the one hand, we know what those words are, but pairing them together was really a unique combination that hopefully people will remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make it more memorable when you hear a concept explained in a new and unique way using new phrasing or wording that you haven't heard before. You mentioned asking rhetorical questions, like putting up the diagram on the big screen and saying, what do you see here? That's a rhetorical question. That gets the audience thinking. Even though she's speaking to thousands of people here, it's not realistic for her to actually have an interaction with the audience, but she is creating that sensation, where it feels a little bit more like a dialogue than it otherwise would. And that is significant in the minds of the audience. You mentioned her personal stories, bringing in her personal background. She mentioned the 25 years of experience. Certainly that's reinforcing her credibility and her authority on this topic as an expert. So that is a subtle way, and it's not like a huge, heavy thing like, you guys should really listen to me because I'm such an expert. Just, slips it in there, but it helps to reinforce her authority nonetheless. And then just speaking in general about her personal background, I used to think that design was neutral, blah, blah, blah. She could have easily avoided, she didn't have to say that, right? She could have easily just talked in the abstract about design not being neutral or not being neutral, but she chose to personalize it. When you personalize the content, it makes it that much more impactful and urgent for the audience. And then we also see this alternation. I like to talk a lot about alternating between high level and low level. High level, she's talking about theory and abstract concepts. And then she gets into the low level, which is specifics, specific details and examples. So she's showing actual examples of the platform in action. She's speaking to specific challenges and how they tried to overcome those challenges, how they succeeded, how they failed. So that alternation, going back and forth throughout the presentation, is very significant and very important. And that's something that a lot of people miss, because a lot of people either spend their whole presentation at the high level in the abstract, just talking about concepts, or they spend 95% of the presentation talking about details, and they don't stitch together the connections. That was something also we saw with Andy Jassy, talking about general high-level business trends, and then also specific details, specific numbers and data points to reinforce those trends.
I thought overall she was a dynamic speaker. I thought, she kept my attention the entire time. I wanted to learn more. Again, I really enjoyed her friendly tone And it didn't come across as arrogant or pompous, which, you know, of course you can see, you know, with some of the people who work at some of these big companies. I don't feel like that came across at all. So I really enjoyed her presentation.
Absolutely, yeah, the conversational aspect, you know, that relatability with the audience. It's a great point.